the book is written by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. She's a professor, English professor in the US, and it's in first person. Draupadi first personal bardirodu. It's a lot of deviation for many major characters. I will go on putting some topics on the table. Just raise your hands and start talking. Okay. Each participant will give a short summary, maximum of 2 to 3 minutes. 3 minutes anta. So about what do you think about this book?
ಅವಳಿಗೆ ಏನ್ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಶರೀರವಾಣಿ comes, you have to make a history, you have to change the history of the world anta. So ಅವಳಿಗೆ from the beginning she had that in mind. Inner thing is that I am not an ordinary person. I am a Deva Kanya or something, Agni Kanya or something, and I am different from I am going to make a special issue in the world, and I am going to make a history. So she had that in mind.
I had this concept of making a dance production, so of different heroines. Adike I wanted to gain different perspectives. Puska oddaga I really liked it because it gave her a voice beyond just stories and beyond just events. And ಅವಳು ಹೇಗೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರಬಹುದು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು glimpse ಸಿಕ್ತು.
Personally, it read like fiction, and it is a mythology. It's based on our Mahabharata mythology, and all those facts are the same, but it read as a fiction book. But personally, for me, it was astonishing to read this whole book on Draupadi's perspective.
It was more symbolic. The title is more symbolic. Palace of Illusions. And her head, her mind is the Palace of Illusions.
I kind of found some parts a little frustrating because it seemed like she was putting a lot of pressure or significance on minute details. Like she'd say things like, maybe my offending Duryodhana is what led up to the war, or my disrespecting Karna at the Swayamvar is what led up to the war. But in fact, the war was always going to happen. Thought the book kind of was interesting because it kind of read like what we call fan fiction today. It's like extending a story and building on elements that aren't maybe as like built upon in the original work.
So I am not a purist, and I really enjoyed this book. What I really liked was the fact that nothing was actually glorified, I felt, in the book. Like none of the characters were like gods or goddesses with superpowers. That was not there. Even Krishna was kind of humane as possible, I thought.
It's I read it in that perspective, like it's a fan fiction. It talks about Draupadi's mind and everything. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅನ್ಸಿದ್ದೇನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಲೈಕ್ even though women, like Anusha said, like nange I have a desire or someone, or na ತಪ್ಪು ಮಾಡಿದೀನಿ ಅನ್ನೋ guilt ಇದೆ, because in Karna's perspective adralli ಅಂತ ಇದ್ರೂನು ಕೂಡ.
The book for me was a 3-star book, mostly because yes, I did enjoy a women's perspective on Mahabharata, but I did not like the fact that author took the liberty to focus the whole story only based on the lust or desire of just Draupadi wanting to get attention from Karna.
I enjoyed the book, and I would totally give it almost like 3.8 on 5.
I did not like the liberty the author took.
Like when the situation comes, avaga women's thinking change agate, but in this book it never changes. Kind of, even after she felt humiliated, still she continues with that kind of mindset, which is I couldn't accept that one. That is one thing that she failed anta nange ansiddu as a writer. When we read Mahabharata, and Draupadi is, she takes a stand when she has to, and all those character is there in real Mahabharata.
Okay. Ram Prasad.
So it is said that Mahabharata is the greatest work ever written, that can ever be written. Mahatvat Bharavatvacha Mahabharata Muchyate. Illi ilde irodu ಇನ್ನೆಲ್ಲೂ ಸಿಕ್ಕೋಕ್ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋದನ್ನ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಸಮ್ವೇರ್ ಎಲ್ಸ್. ಬಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ಐ ಫೌಂಡ್ ವಾಸ್ ಒಂದು ತುಂಬಾ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ. ಈಗ ವಸುಧಾ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ ಹಾಗೇನೆ, ಅಕಸ್ಮಾತ್ ಈವನ್ ಇಫ್ ಸಂಬಡಿ ಹ್ಯಾಡ್ ಸಚ್ ಅನ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಸಂಬಡಿ, ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಚಿತ್ರ ನೋಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಪೀಪಲ್ ಮೈಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಎ ಫಿಲ್ಮ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್, ಬಟ್ ದಟ್ ಡಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗೋ ಥ್ರೂ ದೇರ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಆಫ್ 50 or 60 years. ರೀಸನ್ ಇಲ್ದೇನೆ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಸೀಮ್ಸ್ ಸೋ ಇರ್ರಾಷನಲ್.
ಇನ್ಫ್ಯಾಚುಯೇಷನ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಆಗತ್ತೆ. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಲೈಕ್ ರಾಮ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್ ಸೆಡ್, ಯಾವ್ದೋ ಒಂದು ಹೀರೋನ್ ನೋಡೋ ಅಥವಾ ಏನೋ ನೋಡೋ, ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ ನೋಡೋ, ಯು ಮೇ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಇಟ್. ಬಟ್ ಕಡೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವರ್ಗಾರೋಹಣ ಪರ್ವದಲ್ಲೂ ಶಿ ಕೀಪ್ಸ್ ಥಿಂಕಿಂಗ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಆಫ್ ದಟ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್.
ಏನು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಜಸ್ಟ್ ವೆನ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ರೀಡಿಂಗ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ದ ಪರ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ದಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ದ ಒರಿಜಿನಲ್ ಮಹಾಭಾರತ.
So I'm going to put down here few topics about which anybody can raise your hand and talk. I will just ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ when I say you talk. So, feminism and the book, starting from birth, name, interests, looks, anger. So I topic ittidini. Besides this, if you think of anything else, you can talk about that too.
The Draupadi, like, she never comes in that way, but if you see the Mahabharata, Draupadi is more stronger than this book.
Like, throughout the book, there's no like transformative experience depicted where she becomes like a stronger individual. And a lot of what is emphasized in this book is her not being able to get along with other women.
ಮಹಾಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ದ್ರೌಪದಿನ ತುಂಬಾ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್ ಆಗಿ ಪೋರ್ಟ್ರೇ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ಓನ್ಲಿ ಸಿ ಫ್ರಮ್ certain events, right? And then it's said in passing. Illi, it's a fictionalized perception of the level of confusion that's happening in her mind anta annistu nange. So it's not about feminism, but it's more about her as a person being quite conflicted and in her own voice.
Sadness seems to be the main, and there are very small glimpses of her being happy, and I feel she was happiest when she was in conversation with Krishna, especially in her growing years, and then with her brother. It seems like there was a true bond.
If you go to original Mahabharata, you will find Draupadi, or for that matter Sita, very, very strong characters. Kelve episodes you will see how strong they are, and Draupadi was a strong woman like that too.
But like, it kind of like portrays women as being manipulative more than powerful or strong, because a lot of times that's what she emphasizes. Like, she emphasizes Kunti manipulating the Pandavas to do things.
I agree with you on this. 100% agree. Yes.
And then also she participates in manipulating them because she knows their weaknesses and how to most like affect them with her words and her actions. And she acts on those kind of impulses as well. So I feel like it kind of even maybe gives like a more negative depiction of those characters than the original, because in the original they're kind of seen as like more like righteous in what they do, versus in this one everything kind of has this like immature manipulative veneer on it.
So next I've noted down few Draupadi centric episodes. ಅದು ಒರಿಜಿನಲ್ ಮಹಾಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ವಸ್ತ್ರಾಪಹರಣ ಅಥವಾ ಕೀಚಕವಧೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ದ್ರೌಪದಿನ ಎಳೆದು ಇದ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹಂಗಾಯ್ತು ಹಿಂಗಾಯ್ತು ಅಂತ ಬ್ರಿಂಗ್ ಯು ಟಿಯರ್ಸ್. ದ್ರೌಪದಿ ಹಿಂಗೆಲ್ಲ ಆಯ್ತಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ. ಪ್ರಾಬಬ್ಲಿ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಹಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಡ್ as well. But when she tells it in her own words, it sounds so much simpler anta nanganistu. I want to hear your comments on Swayamvara, Vastrapaharana, Kichakavade, Durvasatitya, Kurukshetra. You can pick any of these topics or you can choose your own topic.
So they send Krishna, he is the right person anta, and you Draupadi idರಲ್ಲಿ I mean she has personally told Krishna not to make any sandhana, only to make yuddha only, battle only anta ಹೇಳಿ ಕಳಿಸಿರ್ತಾಳೆ.
Draupadi is the one who brings them together ಅಷ್ಟೇ. Other wives ಜೊತೆ ಇದ್ರೆ other wives, when have you seen them all interacting together? Never.
So that is what the unity, I mean, she is the rope for all five to, like always tie it together ಅನ್ನೋ ತರದಲ್ಲಿ like
ಇದು I mean I suspect some of the things she is inspired by Parva, but ಆ ಮಟ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ.
ಇನ್ ಮಹಾಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ, ಮೂಲ ಮಹಾಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ದೃಷ್ಟದ್ಯುಮ್ನ ಮತ್ತೆ ದ್ರೌಪದಿದು ಆ ರಿಲೇಶನ್ಶಿಪ್ ನ ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ತೋರಿಸಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವೊಂದ್ ಕಡೆನಲ್ಲಿ ಅವಳು ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಶಿ ಕೋಟ್ಸ್ ದೃಷ್ಟದ್ಯುಮ್ನ, ಲೈಕ್ ಈ ತರ ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದಾಗ ಆ ತರದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಲೈಕ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಹಿ ಇಸ್ ವಿತ್ ಮೀ ಅನ್ನೋ ತರದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊತಾಳೆ.
ಆ ಪೋರ್ಟ್ರೇಯಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಹೌ ಒನ್ ಫೀಲ್ಸ್ ವಿತ್ ಎ ಸಿಬ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಬಂದಿದೆ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ನೈಸ್. ಸೊ ಗ್ರೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಅಪ್ ವಿತ್ ಎ ಬ್ರದರ್, ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರಿಲೇಟ್ ಟು ಇಟ್ ಸೋ ಮಚ್.
ಅವನಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಯಂವರಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ಕೃಷ್ಣ and Vyasa, both of them will give her some clues, and Krishna wants her to marry only Arjuna, and Vyasa will give some clues. You are born for creating a history, and then ನೀನು ಎರಡು ಚೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ನಿನ್ ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾನೆ ಅವಳಿಗೆ. ಬಟ್ ಅವಳು ಅದನ್ನ ತಗೊಂಡು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬಂದಾಗ, ಸ್ವಯಂವರಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಾಗ, there are so many people and she longed for Karna, but she takes Krishna's word, ಅವಳು ಇನ್ನರ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಇಂದ, ಅವಳು ಮನಸ್ಸು ಇದರಿಂದ ತಗೊಂಡು ಅವಳು she wanted to marry only Arjuna. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ she changed the history.
How central is Draupadi's character in Mahabharata? What type of Naika is she for Natya Shastra? She is multiple Naikas. So you can say yalli eno anta.
I think her undertone is always one longing for her lover, alva, as in she's separated and she's always longing anta, one wanting that dressed up for union and atara ankobodu. In her mind she's always ready for untara vasaka sajika nayaka anatara, but her what she's known for is Khandita Naika.
I mean, Visarika maybe the right word, as portrayed here. And Khandita is I don't know, manipulativeness ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ತೋರಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವ ನಾಯಿಕೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಕ್ಕೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ದ್ರೌಪದಿ ಇಸ್ ಎ ವೆರಿ ಉದಾತ್ತ ನಾಯಿಕ ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಒರಿಜಿನಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಶಿ ಹಸ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಎ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ನಾಯಿಕ.
ಕರ್ಣನ್ ಜೊತೆ ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಶಿ ಇಸ್ ಡೆಸ್ಪರೇಟ್. ಸೊ ಅಭಿಸಾರಿಕಾ,
I would definitely think of her as Abhisarika because the book is kind of revolving around her longing for Karna.
Padma.
ಈ ವಸ್ತ್ರಾಪಹರಣ ಆದಾಗ ವಿಪ್ರಲಬ್ಧ ನಾಯಕಿ ತರನು ಆಗಿರೋ ಹಾಗೆ ಇದೆ.
ಕ್ಲೋಸಿಂಗ್ ಕಾಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಈ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ ನಾನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋದು ಹೆಸರು. I will start putting down the questions one by one. Did any of your opinions change after reading this book? One. Innando, do you have any questions that remained after reading this book? Something was incomplete after reading this book anta anustha.
I think like one pivotal thing that Draupadi could have done but didn't was like when she knew that Kunti was not going to tell her husbands that Karna was their brother, she could have told them, and that might have brought about like a ceasefire.
ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ದುರ್ಯೋಧನ ಸಾಯ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಸತ್ತುಬಿಟ್ಟು ವೀರ ಸ್ವರ್ಗಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ಸ್ವರ್ಗಕ್ಕೆ, ನೀನು ಗೆದ್ದುಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬರೀ ವಿಡೋಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಆರ್ಫನ್ಸ್ ಇರೋ ಒಂದು ರಾಜ್ಯನ ಆಳ್ಬೇಕು, ಯಾರು ಸೋತರು, ಯಾರು ಗೆದ್ದವರು, ಯಾರು ಡಿಸರಬಲ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ.
Opinions, I'm not sure. I already mentioned I was a little unsettled by the book, the way it's portrayed, the feelings, etc. I don't think much of my opinions changed anyhow. So
yeah, ನನಗೆ ಒಪಿನಿಯನ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ. I think it's very hard to change also. So especially with the Mahabharata opinions, it definitely no, it's not going to change. So ನನಗೆ ಕುಂತಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವಳದ್ದು ದ್ರೌಪದಿದು ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅಂಡ್ ಹರ್ ರಿಲೇಶನ್ಶಿಪ್, ನಂಗೆ ದಟ್ ಇನ್ಫ್ಲೂಯೆನ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ಏಕ್ತಾ ಕಪೂರ್ಸ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೋರೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಐ ಮೀನ್ ದಟ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಐ ಫೆಲ್ಟ್.
ನನ್ಗೆ ಒಪಿನಿಯನ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗೋದು ಅಂತ ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ somehow I always thought of her as the helpless person who kind of did not have much, ಒಂಥರ destiny was not in her hands ಅನ್ನೋ ತರ ನನ್ಗಿತ್ತು. So for me to see everything from her perspective and to think that ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಮುಂಚೆನೆ it was all said before, and she was just kind of doing her role and making her own choice was a very fresh perspective, and I stopped thinking of her as that helpless damsel in distress kind of a way.
The damsel in distress, although it was also put in first person, but yeah, I agree to that. And then I've been listening to your discussing, and I feel that you cannot read this book after having read a lot about Mahabharata. You have to treat this as a pure fiction, cannot question it. That's my take on it. And also, just focusing on the book, given her powerful character, and that she shows compassion, love, etc., etc., I could not understand why she ignored her own sons, biological sons.
ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಹತ್ರ ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಹೇಳಕ್ ಆಗ್ಲೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ದಟ್ ನಾನ್ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಎಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರೀತಿಸ್ತೀನಿ, ಬಟ್ ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಇವಾಗ ಅನಿವಾರ್ಯವಾಗ ಸುಭದ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಐ ಕುಡಂಟ್ ಟಾಕ್ ಮೈ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಅಂತ ಅದನ್ನ ಲೌಡ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ ಅವಳು.
It's fascinating to see the juxtaposition of Kunti trying to exert all of that influence on her kids versus Draupadi, pulling herself away and trying to exert influence over everyone else. The multi-dimensionality of Draupadi was brought up. Andre modlella, she is so powerful, she is so sure, she is khandita, and that's it another portray marta ididdu, whereas now she's more normal, she's more human, she's more conflicted, she's more multidimensional. There's so much noise in her mind that she's not able to find her identity. Another fiction, be it an interpretation, albeit, but that was the reason I enjoyed it. Another, so there weren't any changing of opinions per se, but more so of appreciating the other perspective.
What could have been better in this book?
ತುಂಬಾ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು ಅನಿಸ್ತು ನಂಗೆ, like this being such a complicated story. I wish there was more like reading between the lines kind of a scene, or inna salpa metaphors. Like it could have been a little more poetic and dramatic and little more I think we expect that out of stories as complicated and as deep as this. So
I agree.
Too straightforward and too simple for me.
Nangu haganistu, literature standpoint inda it was very 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 simple, very ordinary anistu.
I agree. I feel like the voice, like the first person narrator voice, is like a little immature. I wasn't like, at sometimes I feel like it changed from like current like present tense narrating to like in hindsight narrating, but either way I feel like for the majority of the book the voice could have been like a little bit more mature.
ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಒಂದು ಟೈಮ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಏರ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಓದಕ್ಕೆ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ಐಮ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಟೇಕ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಬುಕ್ ಫಾರ್ ಏರ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಯು ನೋ ದ ಸ್ಟೋರಿ. ಅದು ಯಾವ್ದೋ ಒಂದು ಪೇಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತೆಗೆದು ಓದಕ್ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಯು ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಫುಲ್ಲಿ, ಅಂಡ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ನಿದ್ದೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಮುಚ್ಚಿಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು. ಅಂಡ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಡೋಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಎ ಬುಕ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಫೈನ್.
This was my way of trying to explore other things as I try to do something more than what's just been told.
Anytime.
Thank you everybody. I had a great time talking to everyone and getting different perspectives. Nanageno tumba khushi aaytu, maja bantu, and I'm all the more happy because my daughter participated and my mother participated. So at least there is one book which 3 generations can read and appreciate.